Hey boys and girls, are you ready to read more about Luke? If you remember in chapter 5, Luke and his family, they received a letter from the government. Do you remember what that letter said? The letter told them that they could no longer raise hogs. And remember that raising hogs is what brought their family in most of their money to live on. So at the end of the chapter, remember, they were all looking at each other as if they knew something. Everybody knew but Luke. So let's find out what they all knew in chapter 6. Chapter 6. The tax bill arrived 2 weeks later, the day that Dad, Matthew, and Mark loaded the hogs into the livestock trailer and took them all away. Most were going to the slaughterhouse. The ones too young and too small to bring a decent price were going to an auction for feeder pigs. You know what feeder pigs are? That means they feed them to get them big enough to go to the slaughterhouse. Luke watched through the vent at the front of the house as Dad drove by in the battered pickup with each load. Matthew and Mark sat in the back of the pickup, making sure the trailer stayed hitched right. Even 3 stories up, Luke could see Matthew's hung dog expression. A hang dog expression is he's kind of hanging his head down, and that's really sad. Now, Matthew is sad, remember, because when Matthew grew up, Matthew wanted to be a hog farmer. That's what he wanted to do for his living. So now that the government has said this, he's thinking that probably will not be allowed for him either when he grows up. Then, when the 3 of them came into the house for dinner after watching the last of the hog smell off their hands in the mudroom, Dad handed Mother the tax bill without comment. She put down the wooden spoon she'd been using to stir the stew and unfolded the letter. Then it dropped. What now? What other bad news could it be? Why, that's... She seemed to be doing the math in her head as she bent to retrieve it. That's 3 times what it usually is. There must be a mistake. Dad shook his head grimly. No mistake. I talked to Williker at the auction. The Willikers were the nearest neighbors with the house 3 miles down the road. Luke always pictured them with monster scares and fierce claws because of the number of times he'd been cautioned. You don't want the Whitakers to see you. Dad went on. Whitaker says they raised everyone's taxes because of them fancy houses. Makes our land worth more. Isn't that good? Luke said eagerly. It was strange. He should hate the new houses for replacing the woods and forcing him to stay indoors. But he'd half fallen in love with them, having watched every foundation poured, every wooden skeleton of walls and roofs raised to the sky. They were his main entertainment, aside from talking to Mother when she came upstairs for what she called my Luke breaks. Sometimes she pretended his room needed cleaning as badly as the bread needed baking or the garden needed weeding. Sometimes she just sat and talked. Dad was shaking his head in disgust over Luke's question. No, it's only good if we're selling, and we're not. All it means for us is that the government thinks they can get more money out of us. More money? The government just took all of their hogs, so they can't bring any money in, and now they are charging them for more taxes on their house because they said they think the house is worth more because all of these houses are being built in what used to be their woods. Matthew was slumped into his chair at the table. How are we going to pay? He asked. That's more than we got for all the hogs, and that was supposed to carry us long through. Dad didn't answer. Even Mark, who normally had a smart alecky comeback for everything, was quiet. Mother had turned back to her stew. I got my work permit today, she said softly. The factory's hiring. If I get on there, I can maybe get an advance on my paycheck. Luke's jaw dropped. You can't go to work, he said. He wanted to say, who will stay with me? Who will I talk to all day when everyone else is outside? but that seemed too selfish. Luke looked around. No one else looked surprised by Mother's news, so he shut his mouth. So now that all of the hogs are gone and their property taxes have gone up, Mom is going to go look for a job in the factory. So if Mom leaves the house, Luke's right. That will leave Luke all alone in his house. I wonder how Luke will feel about that. How will that change the plot of the story? Leave your ideas in the comments. I can't wait to hear what you think may happen next. I'll see you tomorrow.